Are you coming to the tree?
Hello, and welcome back. I know I'm sporting a little bit of a different look than I usually do, but today is my workout day, so there is really just no point in changing in between my workouts, but I really wanted to get this video done because I am so excited to talk about A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. A little bit of background on how I kind of came across the Hunger Games. You know, it wasn't because I was like super on the cusp and, you know, I just found books before other people. It was actually quite the opposite. I had no interest in reading the Hunger Games because I thought it was a little too gruesome, kind of, you know, violent. Like, it's about children fighting to the death. But for me, sometimes I will cave when I hear about a series over and over and over again. And, you know, I just need to know my competition. So I read it, and I was blown away. Like, it had so much more depth than just the violence. And it was really entertaining. I guess I'm a student of human nature, and I really enjoy seeing how people will make the decisions that they make and grow in the way that they grow and what drives them. So when I heard about A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes coming out, I mean, obviously I was excited. I was like, I just can't wait to see what else she can do. But my initial thought or understanding was that it was going to be about that war that caused the divisions in the districts. So when I realized it was not about that, I second guessed whether or not I really wanted to read it. But what the hey, you know? If you don't know, it's actually about President Snow, Coriolanus, and how he kind of, the very beginning of his rise to power, and how he started out as one of the first mentors in the Hunger Games, and how that kind of developed him and set him on the path to becoming who he is. Right. So, you know, books are not perfect, and this one definitely has moments that I wish had been done differently, but for the most part, I admire Collins's creativity. She has another series of books. I think they're middle grade, they might be YA, but I am just shocked that she has one series that has kind of like shot into the stratosphere, and then another series that kind of flies under the radar. Let's get on to the book. The novel opens, I think, like 8 years after the war ended, and Coriolanus is destitute. You know, his family is old money, highbrow, but they lost all their money in the war because they had invested in District 13. And if you've read The Hunger Games, you know that District 13 has been destroyed. Like, it no longer exists. So without production, they have no money. Why they can't figure out another source of income, I don't understand. It's not really an important part of the novel, but it's just one of those questions that pops into my brain. His parents have both died. His dad died in the war. His mother died in childbirth, so he is just left with his grandmother and his cousin Tigress, which is another familiar name if you have read Mockingjay. So they have no money, but they are skating by off of Tigress's meager income, but you know, they're pretending that nothing's wrong. They still live in their penthouse apartment, and they just cloak and dagger, you know, just doing what they can to keep people from knowing that they have no money. Then the Hunger Games comes around. And this is a very different Hunger Games than the ones we're used to. We are used to a huge production where everybody has to watch, and, you know, at least certain districts, especially the capital, you know, it's a game, and it is something that they really invest in and that they look forward to all year long. And even for some of the districts, it's an honor to be a tribute. At this point in time, there is none of that. It's basically, okay, we're going to reap our tributes, we're going to throw them in kind of like a coliseum kind of arena, just super bare bones, and like we'll throw some weapons at them. whether they're nourished, whether they're capable, it doesn't matter. Like, we're just gonna have them fight to the death, and if you win, super, we're gonna send you back, and then we're gonna start over the next year. I don't quite remember why they decided to do mentors. I think it was because they were trying to figure out ways to get people more invested in the Hunger Games, or, you know, try to make the Hunger Games more exciting, try to give the tributes kind of a leg up. Snow is chosen to be part of this elite group, and he is assigned the girl tribute from District 12. In his eyes, and probably everybody else's eyes, but especially his, because he's a super snob, he sees this as a slight. You know, he's always wondering who really knows about my situation and who doesn't, and he feels like by being given someone from 12, and particularly the girl, that it is a snub to him, saying, you are not worthy of a better tribute. On the other hand, we have another character named Sejanus, who is capital but not capital. His father made money in a different district and became extremely wealthy, and so then moved his family from District 2 to the capital when Sejanus was very young. Despite the length of time, because they're like 17 now, so despite him being in the capital for 10-ish years, nobody, even himself, views him as a capital boy. He is still a district boy. But his father buys him the boy from District 2, Marcus. Coriolanus, his tribute is Lucy Greybeard. So from the get-go, Coriolanus doesn't really like Sejanus, but there's not much he can do about it because he kind of needs Sejanus, and they have, it's not really a push and pull relationship, because I don't know how much Sejanus suspects about Coriolanus' true motives. But that's for later. So the tributes are brought in on like an animal train. You know, they're treated like animals. They are put in a train car that has been used to ship animals. There is no precedent for how the mentors interact with the tributes, and it's really interesting. I think the most interesting part about, actually the two most interesting parts about this book are you see the early foundation of the Hunger Games that we're familiar with, as well as just the little things that are going to shape Coriolanus into who he is going to be, and how he also affects the Hunger Games that we come to know. There is no precedent for how they are supposed to interact with their tributes, but Tigress, who I really wish there'd been a little bit more of her. I really hope we get or two other books, because I really want that initial book in which all the districts are at war with the capital. But I also would love to see a book that develops Tigress into this really sweet person to the weird tiger creature that she becomes and is an outcast from society, in which, you know, that's just another aspect I love, where in Mockingjay we meet her and we're like, you know, Katniss has this thought of what happened to her that caused her fall from grace, that caused her to be shunned by society, where in this first novel, this Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, she is President Snow's cousin. So, you know, even though they were destitute in the beginning, when he has his rise to power, you know she's reaping the rewards of his ambition. Anyways, so Tigress encourages him to meet Lucy Gray at the train station. He waits a really long time. The tributes finally come, and the peacekeepers are like, what are you doing here? And he ends up riding with the tributes to where they are going to be kept, which happens to be a zoo. Anyways, so, but he's just attempting to kind of get Lucy Gray on his side, to like him, because he really just wants to be able to go to university. He wants to earn a scholarship, and if he can win this Hunger Games and he can get that scholarship, he is kind of the instigator of getting them fed and getting people to root and to attach to certain tributes, and then he's the one who suggests the betting system. The novel goes on with him getting to know Lucy Gray and being put in certain situations in which he can bond, or there is there's sort of two antagonists. One is Dr. Gall, who is in charge, or who is responsible for mutations. She is sadistic, and she's also the one responsible for the Hunger Games. She's the one who suggested this is how we punish the districts. She's an antagonist because she's kind of like President Coin in Mockingjay, where she's not outright sadistic, but underneath it all, she's sinister. Then there is Professor Hightower, who is a morphine addict and hates Coriolanus for reasons unknown. But he is the one who originated the idea for the Hunger Games because of an assignment Dr. Gall had given him when he was in school. And that is now why he's a morphine addict, because he feels so guilty about suggesting it. There's a whole lot more to that. We're not going to get into it. Dr. Gall continues to assign the mentors essays in which they provide answers that you can see being implemented in the future, and then you will see when you read the Hunger Games. So Coriolanus is getting to know Lucy Gray. He is forming a rough friendship with Sejanus. He is, when I say rough, I mean like he's pretending to be Sejanus's friend. But I don't know how much Sejanus suspects, but yeah, Coriolanus is basically using him because not because of what Sejanus can do for him, any kind of money he can receive or whatnot, but it's like he can't afford to be mean to people because Snow lands on top. Like, he has to always land on top, so he has to conduct himself in a certain manner so that he can always land on top. There is quite a bit of lead up to the Hunger Games. I feel like the first third-ish of the book is really just laying groundwork for what the Hunger Games will be. It's kind of developing Coriolanus, introducing us to characters, but it's really showing us how they contribute to the Hunger Games we know. However, by the time the Hunger Games does arrive, Coriolanus has managed to bond with Lucy Gray. They've even formed something of a romance. A number of tributes and some mentors have already died. Many incidents have occurred in which have caused deaths. I want to say there's like 16-ish tributes left by the time the Hunger Games starts. As I said, they don't really want to be there, and there is no incentive to win, except for the obvious, which is living. But yeah, so they just hide in the tunnels, in the bowels of the arena, and nothing really happens. And this is something I find very interesting in the novel, because it could be incredibly boring. Like, that's a huge risk, because we are used to the Hunger Games being exciting and being a major momentum point in the novels, and here it's not. At the same time, it's like you can't expect the original Hunger Games to have the same excitement factor because the Capitol is still figuring it out. So Collins just has to figure out a way to keep the book moving while also have the Hunger Games. One thing she does do is she introduces some mutts, which this is the first time that there have been mutts, and these mutations are snakes. And at one point in the novel, Coriolanus and some of his classmates had been assigned an essay. He is the one who ended up writing it, and when he turned it in, she called him and his remaining partner to talk about the paper, and then she says, well, did you both write it? And of course they say yes, and she's like, well, you know, do you have an extra copy, because my copy got put as liner in the snake cage. Of course, Coriolanus is like, no. So she's like, well, if you could just put your hand in here and get the paper out. Well, it turns out that the snakes respond to scent, and so obviously they're going to attack a foreign scent. So when the girl puts her hand in, she's attacked, she's taken away. There we go. So when Dr. Gall is going to introduce these snakes, Coriolanus had figured it out. He had visited her in her lab, and he had seen them packing the snakes up, and he said, I want to give Lucy Gray as much help as possible because I want to win the scholarship, or later on it's the Plinth Prize, because Sejanus's father buys him out of trouble by offering a full ride. So he drops a handkerchief with her scent into the cage. Snakes are dropped, a couple more people die, but Lucy Gray comes out of the tunnels, and she's singing to these snakes, which pacifies them and draws them towards her and away from anybody else and out of danger, and eventually they all die. But this is important because I did not mention the songbird part. She, despite being reaped from District 12, is not, or doesn't consider herself District 12. She is part of what is called the Covey, which is like a singing troupe, you know, singing, acting, just players. She sings to them, everything's okay, but she had also been given Coriolanus' mother's compact, and he suggested she put whatever she wants in it. She chose to put rat poison in it, which she then used to help win the Hunger Games. So now she has won the Hunger Games. Coriolanus is celebrating, and he's called to Professor Hightower's office thinking, okay, I'm going to be awarded my prize, when in actuality Hightower has all the evidence to prove that he cheated. He's given an ultimatum: public humiliation or become a peacekeeper. And we all know that he can't be publicly humiliated. He's a Snow. You know, he has an image to protect. And so he opts to be a peacekeeper, and he ends up in District 12. Now, he has no idea what happened to Lucy Gray. He's worried about her because he's afraid that she's punished for his actions, but she's fine. She's in District 12. She's back with the Covey. And District 12 is a very different place. In the Hunger Games, it's very restrictive. There is the electrified fence. You know, they're not allowed certain places. Katniss has to sneak out, and in order to go to that lake, well, the Covey goes to that lake all the time. People gather all the time. You know, it's still not a fun place to be, but there's not all of those restrictions. And so it makes me wonder, was that Coriolanus? You know, he saw things during his time as a peacekeeper that he realized maybe they should implement measures to prevent certain activities and freedoms. Anyway, Coriolanus, he's kind of ambivalent about being a peacekeeper. He doesn't like it per se, but he does see how it's kind of a better life for him, as he's fed, he's taken care of, he has everything he needs, and then he can send money back to his family. But he is kind of miserable, and then kind of at his lowest point, Sejanus walks in, because different circumstances, but still the same outcome. He chose to be a peacekeeper, and he ends up in District 12. He is the only one who knows about Coriolanus' relationship with Lucy Gray. And it is kind of at one point when they are visiting the Covey that we first see Sejanus meeting with another ex-Covey called Billy Tope. So the thing about Billy Tope is he used to be, I don't know if it's lover is the correct term, boyfriend, romantic partner, whoever, to Lucy Gray. And he this is something I wish had really been explored more. So apparently he is the reason she ended up in the Hunger Games, because he had developed a relationship with the mayor's daughter, Mayflower. I call her Mayflower, Mayfair. And I guess in order to get rid of her competition, she had her dad purposely choose Lucy Gray for the reaping. Billy Tope has been shunned from the covey, but he's still kind of a troublemaker. And Coriolanus sees Sejanus talking to him. He's like, what's going on there? And he sees a map of the barracks that has been drawn. He's like, what's going on there? And he just kind of starts seeing other little things and kind of picking up on lies that Sejanus is telling. He discovers a wad of cash that Sejanus has been hiding. And basically Sejanus is working with the rebels. What he's doing with the rebels is this. When Coriolanus had first come to District 12, there had been a hanging, which serves as the basis of the Hanging Tree song that we all know and love so well, which was written by Lucy Gray Baird. Ta-da! At the hanging, the man's lover, girlfriend, wife, whoever she is, had come kind of in protest, calling out to him, just hating what's about to happen. She is taken away and imprisoned. The plan then is for the rebels to incapacitate the guards, rescue the woman, and then get out of Dodge. They're going to go north, which I think means go to District 13. Not quite sure. Also at the hanging, it was Coriolanus' first encounter with the Mockingjay. And he, from there, just develops this hatred for the Mockingjay. He thinks they're unnatural. He hates the way that at a hanging they will hold on to that last word and just repeat it. So he wants to get rid of the Mockingjays. So he suggests that the new recruits, all these new peacekeepers, go out and use them as target practice. This is not done before the capital sends some scientists to come get any remaining Mockingjays, or not remaining, but any remaining Jabberjays, and then a select number of Mockingjays to study. While he's tagging a Jabberjay, Sejanus approaches Coriolanus and reveals this rebel plan. Coriolanus, unbeknownst to Sejanus, starts recording this because he, it's still that push and pull between right and wrong with him. And so it's like, he does it, he's not really intending to do anything with it, but he does it kind of to cover his own skin. The Jabberjay is sent on, things go back to normal, but one night at the Hob, Coriolanus notices Sejanus leave. He follows him, and he discovers a meeting between him and Billy Tope and a couple of other rebels. Lucy Gray then appears, as does Mayfair, the mayor's daughter. Dun, dun, dun. Mayfair is another character that I think needs a little bit more exploration, as does Billy Tope. I think the whole covey actually needs a little bit more, let's give them a novella, will we? So she, of course, is kind of threatening to reveal plans, and Coriolanus is freaking out because if he is labeled a traitor, that's the end for him. And he's not even there to be a traitor. He just happened to stumble upon this meeting. So he ends up killing Mayfair. And then in his attempts to get Lucy Gray out of there, Billy Tope comes after her saying, well, you know what, if I'm going to hang, you're going to hang with me. So then he is killed. And now we have a murder. It wouldn't be a big deal if it were just people like Billy Tope, but it is the mayor's daughter. So of course everybody involved is incredibly scared. They're afraid of being found out, but nobody is. However, Coriolanus then receives news that Sejanus has been arrested and is being charged with treason. Why is he being charged with treason? One, because Dr. Gall received the Jabberjay with the recorded message, and 2, because of a note that Coriolanus had sent previously, sort of in retribution, like trying to show her what he's learned, maybe in hopes of getting out of being a peacekeeper, because it's something like a 20-year commitment. With this information, she has had Saint Sejanus arrested. He is then hung. Beforehand, Lucy Gray had not wanted to leave. She had not wanted to run away, but she's pretty sure that's what she has to do now. And Coriolanus agrees. I think part of it is fear of being discovered, and he just wants to get away, but he also wants to be with Lucy Gray. Although, here's another aspect I think needed more development. I was never truly convinced as to his feelings for Lucy Gray. I guess I was a little more convinced about her feelings for him, just because we weren't in her head, so I could buy that she, in this process of bonding for the Hunger Games, did see him as an ally, just like with Sejanus. Like, he was able to make Sejanus believe they were like brothers. So I could see how Lucy Gray could think that he's a better person than he really is. They decide, okay, we'll run away, we'll go north. But then Coriolanus receives more news saying that he had passed the officer's test. So he has a dilemma. He either runs away with Lucy Gray, or he can pursue his ambition for greatness. He does choose to go with Lucy Gray. But he quickly discovered life on the lam is not for him. And when I say quickly discovered, I mean by the time they make it to the lake, he's just like, this is something that maybe I could have done just for fun, like a camping trip, but I cannot live my life this way. I am meant for more. I am smarter than this. I am better than this. So we are really starting to see the future President Snow. It is something that, again, may be my biggest disappointment from this book, in that his development was really slow. You do not see the turn until this point. So, during the novel, he had committed some murders. Not necessarily intentional, but he did kill some people. He's having a discussion with Lucy Gray about kind of their time together, and about the time in the Hunger Games, and about kind of what they've done that they never thought they would have done. And he says he's murdered 3, and she's like, who's the third person? Because she has no idea what he has done to Sejanus. And from this point on, that is when, unbeknownst to us, like, we think she buys his story, but she is starting to realize that he's been hiding stuff, that he's not who she thought he was. So they get to the lake, they get to the house, and in the house, they find the guns that had been used in the murder, which one of the other rebels had hidden, and then that rebel had then been killed. So now Coriolanus is like, this is the key evidence that I've been worried about. If I can get rid of this, I really don't need to run. And Lucy Gray picks up on this. And so they split up to do certain things, and he realizes she's been gone a long time. And then he realizes she's left. Like, she's going without him. And he chases after her. He is unsuccessful in killing her. But in this chase, that is really when he has it's his turning point. It's at the very end of the novel, but this is his turning point. All these little things that he was okay with Lucy Gray, or that he thought were endearing, he is now seeing them as manipulative, and as how he could not believe that he ever fell for her tricks. He never catches her, and then he returns back to District 12. We do not know what happens to her, but yes, he returns to District 12, and he gets on the train thinking he's headed for officer training, but he's actually taken back to the capital, and Dr. Gall basically thanks him for his help with Sejanus, and then tells him, you're gonna get what you want. Like, we're gonna send you to university, and then you are gonna become a game maker. And it kind of ends there. We have a little bit of an epilogue, from when he becomes the game maker, kind of his thoughts about Lucy Gray and about Sejanus, and his retrospection on what has happened from the very beginning of the novel to what he's seeing now. And then I guess we're just supposed to have that as a natural transition to the Hunger Games. But as I said, my biggest problem with the novel was that he didn't have enough of a turning point. Like, his character development, I feel like the entire novel, he's kind of innocent in the beginning, and then he has questions, and he's made to think all throughout because of Dr. Gall and these assignments that she's giving them. But it's not until the very, very end that he snaps. And, you can see that underlying President Snowness in him. The bloodthirsty, the ruthlessness, because he kills Professor Highbottom. Have I been calling him Hightower? I think. Anyways, Highbottom. He kills him because Professor Highbottom has always had a vendetta against Coriolanus because, as I said, he was the one who originated the idea, but he had not done it on purpose. Dr. Gall did assign them to come up with a way to punish the districts, but it was Coriolanus' father who had been best friends with Professor Highbottom, and he knew that Professor Highbottom was really good at, like, puzzles and figuring out certain things, and so he got him drunk, he had him come up with his whole plan, and then he turned it in. And that turned Highbottom against Coriolanus because he was bitter. We see kind of his first murder in his rise to power, but I just wish I'd had more evolution throughout. I wish I could have seen how he was starting to believe the things that Dr. Gall was preaching at him, or pushing on him more than preaching, but the ideas that she was trying to pull from him, I wanted to see him start to accept those, and he didn't. Not until the very end when he was chasing after Lucy Gray, and I just felt like that was too sudden. It wasn't unexpected, and I accept it, because I know what he ends up being, but I just felt like it took a really long time for him to evolve. The whole Peacekeeper thing, so the book is set in 3 parts, so it's kind of like pre-Hunger Games, Hunger Games, Peacekeeper. And so when it gets to District 12, I felt like Collins tried to shove all this information, like all this Covey information in particular, and kind of all this backstory for Lucy Gray into maybe not 100 pages, but like a third of the novel, and it didn't work for me. Sorry, I was still trying to figure out if it's really a third of the novel, because this is a long book. It's over 1,000 pages, at least on my iPad. I wish that she had wove some of the Covey, some of the background into the earlier bits of the novel, that she had maybe gone more in depth with what was going on with Billy Tope and Mayfair, because when Lucy Gray is reaped, she is seen putting a snake down Mayfair's dress. So we know there's something going on. And then in the songs she sings, she's alluding to somebody who has broken her heart, somebody who has betrayed her, somebody who is the reason she is in the Hunger Games. But there's nothing until we get to District 12, and I just felt like there was not enough time within that part 3 to really explore all of those other plot lines or subplots. I liked Sejanus for the most part. I liked that he was contrary to everybody else, that he had, like, Coriolanus didn't like the Hunger Games. He didn't like the war. He didn't like how things have turned out, but he accepted them. Sejanus did not. Like, he had the world at his feet, but he knew they were meant to be better people. And so he fought against that. Throughout the entire novel, he was a rebel. Like, he knew what was morally okay, and he tried to get other people to see that as well. But at the very end, when he was in District 12, I felt like he was kind of annoying with it. He went from being like a good-hearted person to someone who is deceptive and maybe a little too idealistic. I liked both villains. I like that we finally got an explanation for Highbottom, and I like that we saw some, I guess you could say, justice for him. I kind of even like, because in Mockingjay, I like that Katniss killed Coin, because it was unexpected, and because I had grown to hate her and think she's actually worse than President Snow. But, you know, so on that same token, I liked that Dr. Gall kind of got her way, because sometimes evil does win out. There really was no happily ever after here. The good side didn't win because Coriolanus isn't good. He is our protagonist, but he's not really a protagonist. He's our main character. I hope you enjoyed this one. This one was really more involved, but that's because, one, it was much fresher on my mind, and two, this is just a novel where things all connected. You kind of had to know a lot more of the details in order to understand the end. Like, even for me, reading the end, I could not skip anything. Like, I had to go back and read the whole book in order to figure out why things were happening. And that's great. I think that's fantastic, because sometimes I do read the end and I'm like, all right, that's all I needed. Let me know if you've read it. Let me know if you agree with the things that bothered me, or are there different things that bothered you? Yeah, and let me know what you're reading too. Maybe I'll check it out later.